The unattainable soul connection. Have you ever encountered someone who felt instantly familiar, as if the very moment your eyes met some hidden chord within, you began to vibrate, awakening a song you hadn't realized was sleeping inside your soul? It's as if their presence stirs something ancient, something sacred, and yet the more you try to reach them, the more elusive they become. It's a paradox that wounds as much as it awakens. Why would the universe present someone who seems crafted precisely for you, only to keep them just beyond your grasp? These surreal, soul-shaking encounters often leave us reeling. We search for meaning, combing through our memories and intentions, wondering if we misread the signs or missed an essential chance. Did we mess it up, or was it never ours to keep? But perhaps the truth lies elsewhere. Maybe these experiences weren't designed to bloom into romance. Maybe they were meant to reveal something hidden, not about the other person, but about you. Before we dive in, consider joining our growing community at Mental Dose. Subscribe for weekly journeys into the deep waters of the psyche, where personal transformation and spiritual growth await. Let's begin. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, proposed that the unconscious mind plays a crucial role in how we form attachments. When we feel an overwhelming connection to someone, it's rarely about them alone. It's about us, our history, our unresolved pain, our unmet desires, our longing to return to a self that feels complete. When someone captures your attention so powerfully, it's often because they're reflecting parts of you back to yourself. Not always your conscious self, but deeper aspects, your wounds, your cravings, the inner fragments you've yet to accept or even acknowledge. This is what Jung explored through the concept of projection. Projection is not a conscious act. It's not choosing to see what isn't there. It's unconsciously assigning meaning and identity to someone based on your internal world. Jung believed we carry within us archetypal images, universal symbols and roles that live in the collective unconscious. Among these are the anima, the feminine archetype within the male psyche, and the animus, the masculine, within the female psyche. When you meet someone who embodies these inner figures, it can feel like fate, like destiny. They seem to complete something inside you. But here's the catch: what you're seeing is often not the other person's reality. It's a vivid emotional reflection of your inner landscape. This doesn't make the experience fake. The feelings are real. The awakening is real. But the purpose isn't always to unite with that person. Instead, it may be to help you unite with yourself. Let's pause here. Imagine a woman who has spent her life in the pursuit of logic and control. She prides herself on rationality. One day she meets a man who is emotive, creative, unafraid to be vulnerable. She is drawn to him in a way she can't explain. Yet their lives are incompatible. They're not meant to be together. Still, she can't stop thinking about him. Why? Because he embodies the emotions and openness she has suppressed in herself. This is the shadow at work. Jung described the shadow as the parts of ourselves we exile, the traits that don't fit the persona we've constructed to navigate society. Often the people who awaken something potent within us but remain out of reach are living embodiments of our shadow selves. They show us what we are missing, not just in life, but within. This isn't a call to pursue these relationships at all costs. On the contrary, many of them are not meant to work. Practically, they may even be destructive. But psychologically, they are gold. They reflect the emotional, spiritual, or creative energy you've buried beneath expectations and fear. In Jungian terms, these meetings are invitations to integrate, not to possess, not to control, but to reclaim the fragments of yourself you once abandoned. The longing, the ache, the magnetism, they serve a higher purpose. They are mirrors asking you to reflect, what part of myself have I disowned? What am I really seeking through this person? Shadow work in the emotional mirror. It's a strange phenomenon. We can be captivated by someone who seems to hold the missing puzzle piece of our soul, and yet their presence in our lives remains brief or unreciprocated or impossible to sustain. These intense connections aren't random. According to Jung, they often occur because the other person carries something from our psychological shadow. The shadow, as Jung defined it, includes all those parts of our personality that we reject or hide away. These are not inherently negative traits, they're simply qualities we've deemed unacceptable or incompatible with our self-image. For one person, the shadow might be sensuality, for another, vulnerability, for others, ambition, creativity, boldness. We often encounter the shadow in projection. When we meet someone who awakens deep emotion, it's often because they're living something that lies dormant in us. Their way of being resonates on a subterranean level, bypassing reason and speaking directly to a forgotten part of our psyche. Let's take another example. Imagine a man who's lived his life seeking approval. He's careful, agreeable, always prioritizing others' needs. One day he meets a woman who is unapologetically herself. She sets boundaries, speaks her mind, radiates self-assurance. He's mesmerized, but their paths don't align. Still, he's haunted by her presence. Why? Because she represents the assertiveness and authenticity he's denied himself. That magnetic pull is not just romantic, it's psychological. She's a carrier of his disowned self. And until he integrates those qualities, he may continue seeking them in others, mistaking that need for love. These encounters can feel intoxicating, even destabilizing. But the turmoil they provoke is a gift. It forces us to question our own identity, to ask, why does this person shake me so deeply? What are they reflecting that I'm afraid to own? This is the beginning of shadow work. It's not about fixing the relationship. It's about facing yourself. Synchronicity, timing, and the illusion of destiny. Sometimes the right person appears at the wrong time. Other times it's the wrong person who awakens the right part of you. These dissonant moments when love stirs but cannot settle can feel like cosmic mistakes. But Jung saw them differently. He viewed such encounters through the lens of synchronicity. Synchronicity, a term coined by Jung, refers to meaningful coincidences that aren't connected by cause and effect, but by their symbolic significance. When two events align in a way that carries deep personal meaning, it's as if the inner world and outer reality are speaking to each other. A synchronistic meeting might be unexpected and fleeting, yet resonate with such profound emotional clarity that it alters your inner trajectory forever. So when you meet someone who electrifies your soul, but you can't be with them due to distance, timing, circumstance, or life stage, it may not be a random heartbreak. It may be a synchronistic signal. That person may be less a partner and more a mirror, illuminating the gap between where you are and where you're meant to go. These meetings act like flashlights revealing buried chambers of the psyche. They expose needs, fears, strengths, and desires that daily life rarely touches. While the relationship may not continue, the message it brings echoes long after. Jung believed that we all walk a path of individuation, the slow unfolding journey toward becoming our truest, most integrated selves. But that journey doesn't happen in isolation. It's catalyzed by friction, by challenge, by connection. And not all connections are meant to be sustained. Some are meant to ignite. Imagine meeting someone who makes you question everything: your job, your relationship, your worldview. You only know them briefly, yet their impact lingers like an imprint on your soul. That intensity isn't just attraction, it's transformation. These people come bearing messages, even if they leave quickly. They may reflect your potential, your unlived life, your buried longing. Their role isn't always to stay, often it's to stir. It's easy to confuse synchronicity with fate. Many believe if it feels this powerful, it must be meant to last. But that assumption can become a trap. Jung cautioned against taking symbolic experiences literally. A soul encounter doesn't guarantee a shared future. Instead, it's often the universe nudging your consciousness forward, cracking open the shell of who you thought you were. This is where the illusion of destiny appears. We imagine a path where love completes us, fills the void, resolves the inner tension. But Jung's vision of destiny is far less romantic and far more liberating. Destiny isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right self. So when someone enters your life and leaves you longing, don't ask, why couldn't they stay? Ask instead, what part of myself did they wake up? It may feel like something has been taken from you, but more often something essential has been returned. Awareness. Awareness of your needs, your pain, your growth edge. That kind of awareness doesn't need a relationship to survive, it needs reflection. Letting go doesn't mean the moment didn't matter. It means the moment has fulfilled its task. And that task is to deepen you, not to complete your story, but to evolve your chapter, releasing fantasy, embracing integration. Letting go rarely feels like liberation when it comes to love. In fact, it often feels like surrendering to heartbreak. But in Jungian psychology, endings are not losses, they are transitions. The closing of a chapter, especially one marked by emotional intensity, becomes a vital point of transformation. When someone touches us deeply, stirs something ancient and unspoken within us, and yet we cannot be with them, the mind clings not necessarily to the person, but to what they represent. The longing isn't always for the individual, but for the dormant aspect of ourselves they mirrored back to us. The fantasy is seductive because it feels like a shortcut to wholeness. But Carl Jung would remind us projection is powerful and often deceptive. The person who seemed like your other half was in many ways a screen onto which your unconscious cast an image of your own desires, repressions, or potential. And this is why the emotional attachment persists long after the relationship or the possibility of one ends. It isn't just them you can't release. It's the version of yourself you glimpsed in their presence. Letting go then becomes not a rejection of what was felt, but a reclaiming of what was projected. To release someone is not to erase them from memory or deny the impact they had on your life. It is to gather the pieces of your own soul that were mistakenly seen as belonging to another. In doing so, we begin the process of integration. Jung believed that healing happens not through avoidance or repression, but by drawing the unconscious into the light of awareness. The parts of ourselves we admired in the other, maybe their creativity, vulnerability, confidence, or sensitivity, are not lost to us. They can be cultivated within, but that requires the courage to turn inward, to stop chasing what's outside, and instead nurture what's within. This internal shift often begins in pain. The ache of separation is not just a wound, it's an opening. It is the psyche's way of alerting us. You have something important to retrieve here. But to retrieve it, we must stop telling ourselves that our completeness exists in someone else's embrace. We must stop believing that the story failed simply because it didn't end in togetherness. Transformation happens the moment we stop resisting what is. Jung famously said, "What you resist persists." And many people spend years resisting the grief, the disappointment, the unanswered longing. But resistance only deepens the wound. Acceptance, on the other hand, opens the way for growth. True release is not passive. It's active, conscious, and deeply spiritual. It's the decision to stop replaying the fantasy and to start honoring the reality. The moment you begin to understand that the person you can't have was never meant to complete your life, but to awaken it, you begin to walk a very different path. One that is no longer about trying to get back to them, but about moving forward with yourself. In many cases, the most healing decision you'll ever make is to love someone deeply and still choose to let them go. Not because it was easy, not because you didn't care, but because you realize that clinging to what cannot be only distances you further from who you're becoming. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating. It means taking the beauty, the depth, the awakening that came through them, and allowing it to seed something new inside you. Their role was never to stay. Their role was to point. And now the path they revealed is yours to walk. Awakening through absence. There's something uniquely profound about the kind of person you never get to keep. They don't fade into the background like a forgotten memory. No, they haunt the quiet hours, echo in dreams, and linger in the pause between moments. And yet it's in their absence that something extraordinary begins. Carl Jung suggested that the psyche is not static, it is dynamic, alive, constantly seeking integration. And often it is the void left by someone we couldn't hold on to that pushes this process into motion. Absence paradoxically becomes presence. It becomes the place where transformation begins. You see, the people we lose before we ever fully have them are often the ones who ignite our deepest questions. Why did this feel so real? What was awakened in me? What is this ache trying to tell me? That ache isn't just grief, it's a summons. In Jungian terms, this is the psyche responding to a rupture. The emotional dissonance between what you felt and what reality allowed creates tension, and that tension is fertile ground. It compels you to look inward and uncover which aspect of yourself was being stirred. Perhaps the person reflected your hidden tenderness, your repressed sensuality, your dormant courage. Perhaps they embodied a life you secretly yearned for, but hadn't dared to pursue. When they left, or when it became clear they could never truly stay, the spotlight turned inward. And here's the truth, their role was never to be your home. Their role was to shake the foundations of the one you built. In the silence they leave behind, your real work begins. Absence invites introspection in a way presence rarely does. When someone is gone, they can no longer distract you. The stories, the excuses, the shared fantasies, they all dissolve. What remains is the mirror, not of them, but of you, of your longing, your projections, your fears, and your hidden strengths. This is where individuation, Jung's central idea, takes on flesh and bone. To individuate is not to become someone else. It's to return fully to yourself. And sometimes we need to lose what we thought we wanted to realize who we are becoming. People often assume spiritual growth happens in temples or silent retreats, but real awakening often begins in heartbreak. Not the kind you can fix with closure or rebound connections, but the kind that cracks your inner life wide open. And here lies a radical shift. Instead of asking, why couldn't they stay? We begin to ask, what were they here to show me? Instead of what did I lose? We begin to see what have I gained. Not in a surface level, silver lining way, but in a raw, soul-deep recognition that sometimes the most pivotal turning points come dressed as loss. The people we cannot be with serve as catalysts, not companions. Their presence was the match. The fire is yours to tend. Over time, the pain changes. It becomes less sharp and more instructive. It stops being a wound and becomes a whisper, the kind that urges you to paint, to write, to finally chase that dream. The kind that leads you to therapy, to solitude, to unexpected healing. The kind that tells you you are not broken, you are being rebuilt. And this is how absence awakens us, not with drama or fireworks, but with slow-burning truth. The path revealed by the one who couldn't stay. Not every presence in our life is meant to last. Some people are not destinations, but turning points. They enter, suddenly alter our emotional landscape, and leave us standing at a crossroads we never saw coming. And although we ache for their return, Jungian wisdom suggests they were never meant to walk the whole road with us. They were meant to show us where the road truly begins. Carl Jung believed that the psyche's deepest instinct is toward wholeness, a gradual integration of all the fragmented aspects of the self. And often this process begins not in joy, but in longing, not in unity, but in separation. The one who couldn't stay becomes the spark that sets individuation in motion. What feels like heartbreak is often the soul's first breath. The timing may have been wrong, the circumstances may have been impossible, but those are surface concerns. At the level of the unconscious, everything arrives exactly when it must. These synchronistic encounters, what Jung called meaningful coincidences, don't obey logic. They obey depth. And the depth of this experience is what matters most. When someone comes into your life and awakens something you've never felt before, don't be so quick to label it as a failed love story. Instead, ask yourself, what was stirred in me? What did they illuminate that I had hidden or denied? You may never get the answers from them. They may never explain, apologize, or return, but your growth doesn't depend on that. Their impact isn't measured by duration, but by what they disrupted, what they uncovered, what they set in motion. And often what they awaken is the realization that your path has always been waiting. It's just that now finally you can see it. The universe doesn't simply send people to love us, it sends people to awaken us, to trigger what's been buried, to challenge what's been stagnant, to call us into becoming. And sometimes the ones who leave the deepest marks are the ones who had to leave. Because had they stayed, you might have clung to the illusion. You might have chased a future that wasn't aligned with your evolution. You might have settled for emotional comfort instead of spiritual expansion. Their absence becomes an initiation. Jung taught that our real task is to withdraw the projections we place onto others and reintegrate those qualities into ourselves. This is the journey of reclaiming power, of no longer needing someone else to carry our fire because we have learned to kindle it within. When you stop chasing them and start becoming what they represented, something profound happens. You no longer see the experience as a wound, but as a door, one they opened, one you now must step through. And as you do, you'll realize something beautiful. The person you thought you lost was never truly the point. The point was what they led you back to yourself. In the end, it's not about who stayed. It's about who stirred your soul awake, who forced you to confront your fears, your patterns, your pain, and who, by not staying, taught you to stay with yourself. Because the most transformative relationships are not those that last forever. They're the ones that change you forever.